Number 3 has some neurodivergencies. Other unspecified defiant disorder is his new,
Okay.
very long, not very specific diagnosis.
Yeah.
When he's not around other people, when he's just himself, what is his core personality? So that's really what I like about the coaching program, is understanding his needs according to his personality and according to his love language. That's made a huge difference. I knew how much I needed this help,
Yeah.
and if I was getting this help, I might as well become certified in it so I can help other people. I'm very much that type.
Welcome to MAMWAA. I'm Gordy, your host, and this is the podcast that includes you into my most famous song lyrics.
He's a middle-aged man with an attitude, and he didn't even have one till he met you.
That's right, I'm the middle-aged man, and my attitude will chatter us through all things that I'm passionate about, from spirituality, the gym and fitness, food, travelling, and music or movies. Quick disclaimer, this list is not exhaustive. So you can get on or you can get off and join us for the episodes that you like the sounds of. Dip in or dip out, as long as you keep dipping. Either way, we've got something to say and we're going in 3, 2, 1 child or an entire herd of a family, staying on top of raising kids and being able to thrive is a much needed topic here on MAMWAA. But as someone who is child free and living alone, that is something that I have no experience with to help you. So we're joined today by a life and parenting coach, helping to empower mothers to rediscover identity beyond motherhood, find balance amidst the chaos of life, and strengthen their relationships to pursue their dreams within that as well. So please join me as we welcome Autumn Carter to the show. Thank you for being here with us, Autumn.
Hi, and thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. So I'm sure we've got a lot of advice that will come through for single fathers as well. So I'll say this for the listeners. If there is anything we're talking about single moms or motherhood, like some of that will be relevant to the guys. So don't just tune out just yet. I'm sure there's lots of helpful advice coming your way. I'm almost certain of it. So I thought what we'd do today then, Autumn, is let's get started with your journey on how did you become a life and parenting coach. So how did it all come about for you?
Sure. So I went back to school when my oldest, he's 9.5 now, he was 7 months old. I had to do the math. My husband and I couldn't agree and finally did the math, and it's 7 months old. So I went back to school. I was feeling kind of bored being the stay-at-home mom and just stagnant in life. So had this great opportunity to go back to school. Thankfully, it was all online because COVID happened during part of that. And I took classes about the 8 dimensions of wellness. It originally was 5, now it's 8. And it just struck a huge chord with me. So I was studying public health and then switched to applied health halfway through because this new degree option offered me more classes in wellness, which I really wanted, a little bit more in nutrition, which I also wanted. And I also took the classes for public health that I still wanted. So I kind of ping ponged back and forth, but my degree ended up being in applied health. And it I just wanted more. As I was finishing up my program, I took this class called The Helping Relationship, which is for learning how to coach people through a very traumatic event. And it's like a one-time coaching, like a hurricane hit their house flooded, something catastrophic happened in their
Yeah.
family, and they need that public health official or applied health representative coming in and helping.
So,
And
sorry, just
go
to
ahead.
interrupt you. So, can you explain for us over here in the UK what is applied health?
Sure. So it is all the ways that you can apply health into your life is the basic of what I've figured out for myself what it is. And this is a degree. It's so similar to public health that it's confusing for
Okay.
most. Um, so you can work in the government sector, you can work as a social worker. Of course, you need to get, like, this is just the starting degree for some of these. So, social worker. I did not enjoy that class. I already knew that wasn't where I wanted to be in. As I was taking that class, it was very triggering because I have childhood trauma, which we will talk about later.
Okay, yeah.
So it was very triggering. There are several times where my husband's like, "I'm here. I'll just hug you until you calm down after this class." Um, you can do There was a class I took called Social Innovation, which is how to help your community well with your business, idea. I loved it so much that I have such an emotional attachment to it that it's hard to
Okay,
find
yeah.
words for it. It's weird. Um, anyway, so while I was getting my degree, I was focusing on the dimensions of wellness. Any class that just mentioned it, I was there for it. And then I took the helping relationship, which is how to help people coach them through a catastrophic event. And I wanted more of that class. I was struggling through it because I was offering too much advice instead of just the open coaching. And I was talking to one of my classmate friends, and she's like, you should talk to my sister. She's a life coach. You might like the program that she ended up doing. And I was already looking into other programs, and none of them felt right. They didn't fit for different reasons. I had already applied to get into a master's program for public health, which with a huge emphasis on nutrition. I love nutrition. Um, anyway, so I talked to my classmate's sister and loved what she had to say, looked into the program where she received her certification as life coach, and it was just like the stars aligned. It was so perfect for me. I ended up doing it. Um, Ended up getting into the master's program, but loved life coaching enough that I'm like, I'm just gonna put that off on the back shelf for now. So that's kind of my long rambly story of how I got really into wellness and then earned my certification as a life coach, but I focus a lot on wellness. I'm toying with and I'm starting to switch some of my branding to just be wellness coaching. And because I now am a parenting coach, that includes men as well. So I'm opening it up to be not just for women. I'm slowly toying with it and changing some of my branding and my wording to be more inclusive of both genders. And I have worked with several men. So the men who may have started to not, I do work with men too. And not all of them are fathers. And I've worked with single women who don't have children. I worked with all different types. And the reason why I originally started with moms is because I resonate with them. I am a mom. And I know so many women that they're not even on the back burner. They're not even on their to do list. They're taking care of everyone else and they forget themselves. And then it doesn't show up right away. This is where the nutrition and the applied health come in. But years down the road, their health is failing them. And they're trying to fit all these pieces of their puzzle together and they don't fit because they've been neglecting themselves for so long. And then we see their children neglecting themselves because of the poor example.
Yeah.
And I originally, when I was looking into life coaching, I was thinking that maybe I'll be a health coach. But what I like about applied health is it talks so much about prevention. And we could be trying to lose weight, we can be trying to do all these different things, but it really goes back to self-care. And if we're taking care of our different dimensions of wellness, because we have so much that makes up us. We're not just this one-dimensional being. We are four-dimensional, and we need to treat ourselves that way. So
Yeah.
that's why I really love this stuff.
So did you decide to become a parenting coach at the same time as you started the life coaching then?
Not at all.
Okay.
I have been so they're probably about 2 years apart. I have 4 kids, and number 3 has some neurodivergencies, and through getting my certification as a parenting coach, his personality is very different from the rest of our family.
Okay.
So there's that friction there, and trying to figure him out and how to best help him. He's right now 5 years old, so just getting into kindergarten, and I really wanted to help him have the best experience with school possible and making friends and everything else. He has impulse control problems, so if he wants something, he will grab it from you, and then, the little child grab it from a little child. Let's put it there. Little child's upset, and then he starts to use his words, and he's upset because that child's upset. It's like, well, you didn't use your words. You didn't ask. You just took. And he has finally, through this whole process, been diagnosed with a other unspecified defiant disorder. Is his new,
Okay.
very long, very not very specific diagnosis, but there's some other things that are coming down the road, which it's nice to have the label, but at the same time, with the coaching program, is taking that label off and just really understanding his personality.
Yeah.
When he's not around other people, when he's just himself, what is his core personality? So that's really what I like about the coaching program, is understanding his needs according to his personality and according to his love language. That's made a huge difference while we've been on this really long, over a year long road to get a diagnosis so that we can get him the extra help in school, because he is the type where he'll be fine for a while and then he gets triggered. And then when he's triggered, that lasts for a while.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you don't understand his personality type, so where the parenting coaching comes in, and understand how to best help him, which is where the medical diagnosis comes in, it makes it really hard. And then you're adding in one teacher to however many students. I don't have the ratio for this year yet because he hasn't started quite yet, but it's usually, I think it was last year, 24 students for one teacher in kindergarten. That's a lot. His preschool class was 12 students. And last year was a struggle with him just going 5 days a week for 3 hours. And the only reason why I had him in preschool was to get him to where he could handle kindergarten okay, and then handle the next year okay. So I knew how much I needed this help,
Yeah.
and if I was getting this help, I might as well become certified in it so I can help other people. I'm very much that type. If I'm going through this struggle, I'm gonna make it mean something.
And I bet that does really help as well for you. Um, I also bet that having a, a blueprint for one child who's not neurodivergent and seeing the difference, although it's a roller coaster, it must have been useful to have that so that you
Mhm,
could tell what needed to be done more accurately.
mhm. So my oldest is 3 years apart from the next child,
Okay.
and then after that, it's boom, boom, boom. So using the comparison was very helpful because there's I think it's 19-year or 20-year, or 20-month, not year, 20-month age gap between my second and my third,
Okay.
and then I think it's 24. I need to do the math again, between my third and my fourth. So having these 3 so close together was really helpful. He's kind of the one in the middle. To be able to compare him to the oldest and then the youngest and be like, "Okay, there are things showing up," and comparison can be good that way. It can be bad, for sure,
Yeah. Yeah.
but in this way, it was really, "Okay, I'm seeing that there are some things that aren't quite normal." He was somebody who would trip over nothing and fall. Like, there's nothing in his way. Why is he tripping and falling? So we got him some physical therapy going. We went on a hike this morning and he did great. He didn't trip. It was my 3-year-old that tripped instead. um, and then getting him some of the occupational help so that he can figure out how to make friends and play and share and learn through play. He was struggling. He was missing some of those pieces,
Okay.
and realizing that not all of it was because he is a COVID baby, and there were some of those social interactions that were missing because of COVID, and trying to not children are kind of petri dishes. You get all the viruses. So trying to stay further away from people made it so some of the social we miss some out on some of the social aspects.
Okay.
And it will definitely show up with all kids. Any teacher that I talk to, they say that there's a really big difference in between these COVID children who are born or toddlers during the shutdown. So just getting him back on track was just such a journey that I wanted to share with other people, which is why I wanted to be on here to begin with, is to share about parenting and then share about, like I said, I originally started out with moms, but parents in general, of how do we make sure that we are supporting ourselves so that we can support our children.
Yeah.
This summer has been pretty rough for me, to be totally honest, having all 4 home, and I have had them full time while trying to also run a coaching business and promote myself and help other people, and it's been a lot, but what's really been helping me is having that time in the mornings for myself, having regular date nights. So I'm getting out with my husband and we're actually having conversations that are uninterrupted.
Yeah.
It's amazing to be able to have a full conversation and to be able to explore things together and our different interests. Thankfully, my husband and I are very similar personality wise, not in a way that creates friction, but like it just works well together. Um, so our parenting styles are very similar too, which is helpful. But just having that self-care aspect.
I live alone, so I'm used to having my own space. And what you were saying about having self-care, having structure, and having things in place to manage everything. This is what I've kind of made a note here because I was thinking about one of your children are 7 months. Is that right?
He was when I went back to
When you went
school.
to
And then
school.
I had
So
and then I had 3 more children. So I had all 4 before I graduated.
yeah, so I mean, one of the things I wanted to discuss was juggling motherhood, your family unit, going to school, like managing all of that, and then starting a business before it was actually up and running as well. There's a lot there, and I was thinking about this earlier before our chat because somebody like me might say, um, "I'm okay, I'm carefree and live alone," or I'm a free spirit without children, and I've heard people say that. So, as a parent with a family, I feel, and this is why I wanted to discuss it. I'm getting to my point. That phrase comes across that parenthood is negative, and that isn't useful when, like we're about to get into, when you're talking about self care and there's so much going on. To be having that on top of it, and to have people who don't understand refer to it as not being free. How do you deal with that? Like, what's your kind of mentality around that phrasing of people who aren't going through what you're going through?
Well, I thought of 2 different things. Parenting is really a mixed bag.
Yeah.
It's all the emotions, all the colors, and sometimes in 1 day or 1 hour, not just the lifetime. And the other thing that I thought of is you can compare running a business, starting a business to having a baby. There you have to put a lot into it to actually get it to grow,
Yeah.
just like a baby. There are a lot of differences, so the people who are starting to say those out loud, yes, I understand. I've been there, I've been to both. And even having a business or having a job that takes so much from you, there's such a need to have self-care.
Hmm.
And if you're not taking care of yourself, you will burn out. How many times have you been sick when nobody else is sick? Because it's not contagious. It's your body saying, we're done.
Yeah.
Or how many times have you just been lethargic? Same thing. Your body's saying you're done. And if you want to show up as your best self, you need to be taking care of all the aspects of yourself. And so I know people who, especially in our generation and younger, who are saying they don't want to have children because they don't want that type of responsibility. I think I see you, and I think that's amazing that you know yourself enough. And there is so much to be said on knowing your own bandwidth, where you are going to be, where you want to head, and know that we have this chance to evolve and we can change our mind. It's a lot harder to change your mind after you have children.
Yeah. And
There's times where I'm like, "What was I thinking?"
did you, I don't mean this is a personal question, but it is quite a personal question. Did you plan for 3 or did it surprise you as it happened?
So, I wanted 4. My dad is the youngest of 4 kids. My mom is the youngest of 9. No way. 9's too much. But I liked how close the family was
Okay.
to each other, so I really liked that aspect. I had fertility issues, my husband and I did. Um, we had a hard time getting pregnant, and then once we had a hard time staying pregnant, so I never thought I'd make it to 4. I you know, just when you're in the thick of it trying to meet your goal, it's like, um and everyone told me that you wanna have even numbers no matter what, because then you don't have that middle child syndrome, or at least it's lessened. And it's easier to go places with, like, the even numbers because you can take 2 at a time, there's nobody really left out.
Yeah.
So, I took that to heart. We had our first after 2 years of trying, and I was hoping to have you make a plan and then things don't happen. So, I was hoping to have 2 close together, a nice gap, and then 2 close together. That's not how it happened, as you know. I had a gap and then 3 close together. So, he was born, and we had 2 miscarriages after him. We ended up getting all the fertility testing. We were about to find out, like, what was going on. We knew that there was some problems with some of the numbers, blah, blah, blah. I called them a week before we were supposed to have our appointment to go over everything, saying, "I'm pregnant." So, the nice thing that came out of that is I got early ultrasounds, which was fun.
Yeah.
Um, so then my daughter was born, 3 years gap, and then she screamed. She did not sleep. She screamed, and I need sleep, otherwise I become, like, the angry, scary person that I don't even wanna be around. So, my husband and I were deciding we were done with 2. That same week is when I got pregnant with number 3, and it was one of those, "Our house is too small." Like, "Our lifestyle is too small for this, what are we gonna do?" So, he was born, and we're like, "Well, do we try for number 4 and even it out?" My husband wasn't so sure because there are complications, along the way, and my husband is I'm an empath, he is an empath on steroids, and he's just like, "I don't know if I can see you go through it again, blah, blah, blah," and he has high pain tolerance, so really he should be the one delivering the kids, not me. I did not. I do now because after 4 kids, you figure out how to suck it up, right?
Yeah.
So I talked him into it, and the nice thing is, it was during the shutdown, so my husband was not working during that time, but he was being paid to not work. Like, we are so blessed that we had that situation. We were able to unpack all the boxes in our house and paint. We moved houses a month before number 3 was born. So, in all that chaos, a year later, we still hadn't unpacked most things
Yeah.
because we are surviving. So, I had really bad morning sickness. It was tapering off, really bad for me. It wasn't, like, compared to really bad for other people. It was tapering off right as he went back to work, and it worked out so perfectly. I wish, looking back, that they have paternity leave for people who have morning sickness and children. Like, come take care of your children while the woman is over here, like, throwing up and dying, wishing she was dead. Anyway, so, it ended up working out really great that he was coming back to work right as I was finishing up. My son was in virtual kindergarten, and I was in school during that time. So we would just be at the kitchen counter, both of our computers. I would help him, and then I'd go back and do my homework and then help him a little bit more. And my husband got to be the hands on dad he wanted to be with the other 2. And it worked out beautifully. My husband works about an hour away.
Okay.
So him being home during that time is still so precious for us.
Yeah.
We know that COVID was very different for so many people. So we realize how incredibly blessed we are, incredibly privileged that we are be to have had that experience. How many times do we wish time would just stand still? And we had that. It was a scary time for
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
but we had that moment of where time is actually standing still. So let's get down all the things that we said that we wanted to get done if time just suddenly, miraculously was still.
Something else then is what you were saying about fertility, like pre-birth, like one of the hardest parts of parenthood then is before the babies are even part of the world. It's the struggles that, I mean, not all parents will have gone through what you went through with fertility, but what advice would you kind of give to people who are thinking about starting a family, don't know what's about to happen with their fertility, what's about to happen when they're pregnant? Like, there's so much to take into account. That's when parenthood really starts, isn't it? What would you say to them
You're right.
based on your experiences?
Whew. Cue the emotions.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry.
breathe through
I'll
this.
get the tissues.
So you're right. That is when parenthood starts, is when you decide that you want to. And it was a hard road, 2 years, not knowing if we were ever going to, not being able to afford to get tested during those first 2 years. And then in between, my son and daughter being able to have the healthcare where we could get the testing done and feeling taken care of. Big difference. My advice, and I got this all the time. It's kind of annoying. If you are more relaxed about it, like just in general, if your body's more relaxed, it does a better job doing what it's supposed to.
Yeah.
So sometimes you kind of need to unplug your brain and trust the rest of your body. And I know so many couples who have gone through IVF, and I'm grateful that I never had to do that because I am so sensitive to hormones that I can't imagine how our marriage would have been during that time if I was having to take hormone replacement for anything. Um, Thankfully he's an empath, so he would have survived, but there would have
It
been
just
very hurt
absorbed it
feelings,
all. Yeah.
right? And he was also the type who, when I was pregnant, he would have the sympathy pain. So I could only imagine if I was doing hormone replacement, anything, it would have been interesting. But really focus on your marriage or your relationship. I know not everybody's married. It's going to be 15 years for me tomorrow of marriage.
Congratulations.
So like that's just stuck in my mind. But I know not everybody's married, and thank you. Congratulations for him. He stuck around this long. But focus on your marriage, focus on your self-care. When you are taking care of yourself, your body will recognize that. I know so many people, they do diets that are to help with fertility. I recommend that. I recommend, but make sure it's not like a diet. Make sure it's a lifestyle change.
Mhm.
There's a big difference. Don't let there be an end date. You should be doing these nutritious things for the rest of your life. And when I talk about diet, I'm not talking about trying to lose weight. I'm talking about the holistic, meaning looking at all of you. What can you add in? And you will add enough good things in that the bad things will naturally fall off.
Okay.
So make sure that you're taking care of yourself in all aspects, your mental health, everything, because once you have children, they take up so much time and attention that if you don't have kind of this deposit in your bank that you're going to be pulling from later, it's hard if you don't have somewhere to be pulling from.
Perfect. And then we go to the other side, and I'm just going to loop back to something you were talking about earlier,
Sure.
which is the structure once babies are here. And once you become the world parent and baby's not inside anymore, but it's part of this beautiful world, then some people don't have structure. They never find the structure. They don't know what's happening or when, what time is it, what arm am I using. Like, some people are just so overwhelmed. And my sister went through a phase of that with her first child. So how could, or what would you say to people to help them find some kind of structure to get on track or get on some kind of stable footing?
Oh, you're going to change up. So I think the freebie that I'm going to offer along with this one will be my block schedule guide instead of what I was originally thinking, because this goes really well. So really think about your block schedule. And I know this can sound ridiculously if you're in the infant phase. But when you're doing that, know that you're gonna have different phases of your life where you're gonna be having to reevaluate your schedule and everything.
So
But
what's a block
yes,
what's a block
yes,
schedule? Yeah, sorry.
yeah. Let me get there and just say no. Yes, thank you. So before I really discuss what a block schedule is, I want you to try and make a list of what are the things that you want to get done during the day. And even if you're not a parent, this still works. There are times where you suddenly have this pocket of time that you did not expect, and you can kind of get in that like buffering, you know, that little rainbow wheel or Netflix wheel or whatever you think of it when you think of buffering, where you're just stuck and I don't know where to start, that you don't actually get started.
Okay.
There's so many things I could do. I'm not sure how much time I'm going to have, that you kind of get stuck. For me, it helped if I had a list that I can choose from, depending on like my energy level, how much time I think I might have, because sometimes if we'll go back to kids, they take a longer nap than expected, and you're like, I didn't expect this. I don't know what to do with myself, and you're just so like, I could fold laundry, I could do this, I could do that, I could take a bath, I could sleep, I could eat, I could whatever, that you're too busy that you run out of time, and you're like, well, darn it, I want that time back. Now I know what I want to do. So there's that. And then block scheduling, I really like it. I know that it's can be so hyped up, but I find it super useful for me. So what you're doing is you're taking your calendar or a piece of paper and you are writing down, what time do you want to have breakfast if you're a breakfast eater? I do recommend it. What time do you want to have lunch? What time do you typically have a meeting if you are working? What time do you typically eat dinner? What time would you like to go to bed? What time are you going to bed? What time do you want to wake up? So you're coming up with the things in your day that are pretty consistent on any given weekday. Well, and then we'll go further into like if there's a different change in schedule or anything like that. So
Okay.
you're finding your, what you could also think of as your if you're driving, your landmarks, right? So then you are putting everything else in. What do you have to do? What do you want to do? What fills you up? And then you're looking at them several different ways. This is why I have worksheets because there's a lot here. But you're thinking about like what increases your energy and what depletes your energy. You're looking at this in a lot of different sides of the
Yeah.
equation or prism or however you want to look at it. I really like metaphors. Sorry,
No,
not
it's fine.
sorry.
Because there's a lot to take into account, isn't there?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
There is. Yeah, and then you're putting like things together. And you're building your day based off of when do you have your natural energy highs and energy lows. Are there people who might be around you that kind of suck your energy? Maybe you need to have lighter things after them. And maybe things that are going to give you energy and motivation before seeing them. Like if it's that boss or that family member or whatever. So definitely be thinking about these things. Like I said, he is going to have the link in the show notes to the freebie
Yeah.
that talks about this guide. And this guide can look really overwhelming. Do it one page at a time. At the end, it's a project, and at the end, you're going to have this end result that makes sense. And because you've done it one time, you can easily shift it
Hmm.
during the different stages of your life when your schedule looks completely different. But you know what things fill you up, what things don't. And that will change as we change. We have this great opportunity to evolve in life. I highly recommend that you get on that train so that you can become your best self. And know that there are times in your life where you're not going to be working towards becoming your best self because you're just surviving. So that's where sometimes you need to go back to your habits that you formed. Hopefully, they're good habits because you're going to be relying on those. So that's where the block schedule also comes into account.
Okay.
Does all of that make sense in
It
like a
does.
really tiny?
And something else, just for people who are not expecting children or for people who don't have children, I saw something, it was actually just a couple of weeks ago, and it was about when to meet new parents. So when you miss your friends, they've just had a baby, or they've been going through all that, just got out of hospital, and they still want to see their friends. They miss their friends. Instead of saying, when's easiest for you, as somebody who's got the wherewithal to support new parents, don't ask when's easiest for you. Ask when's it most difficult. Go and see them when they struggle most, because that's when they need the support, instead of just letting them deal with everything themselves. So that was really useful for me, and I thought I need to put that into practice, really.
And don't expect to socialize with them.
Yeah.
They might need it. They might be climbing the walls and waiting for that, but they might just need somebody to vacuum.
Yeah.
Because and not for the cleaning aspect, for the white noise for the baby. That worked so well with my oldest.
Okay.
For me, food is my love language. So when my friend, she did not expect to have a baby. She's almost 40, and she thought she was done with 2, and then surprise, you know how life goes. What I did is I would make extra meals, make it bigger than normal, and then I would drop it off at her house, because I remember what it was like where and especially if you're nursing a baby, you have to take in more calories, and you need to be snacking while your baby's snacking in order to keep up with all of that, and then trying to feed other children on top of that, and then depending on your significant other and their work schedule, and just all of these pieces that I'm just like, here's extra food. Here I made muffins. Here's this. I know that it helps produce more milk. Here's this meal. So I just did that more than anything, because I remember how hard it was. My husband would have to like portion out my meals, because with my oldest sleep schedule, I wouldn't have a chance to actually put my meal together before he woke up again. So I could just pull it from the fridge, and I did a lot of salads at that point, so I wouldn't have to worry about heating it. I would just eat it while he was nursing, because he was one of those children that would take forever nursing, whereas my daughter was like 5 minutes and done. Big difference. Each child's different. That's why I really like the parenting coaching philosophy
Yeah.
with personalities. But it's really, how can I best help you survive and then thrive in this? And think about how so many people show up wanting to hold their baby. Well, what if you have a virus, but you're not feeling the effects yet, and you gave it to the baby? That's what I always think. So I always tell them, I will
Leave
hold
my
your
baby
baby,
alone.
right? I will hold your baby when you're ready. But right now, I know I have 4 children and we are a petri dish. So I will when you're ready. But in the meantime, here are meals. Here is something for you to have self-care. Like I ask them how they are mentally doing in that moment. Not how are you doing today? How have you been? How are you feeling right now? Even if they're not answering me completely honestly, they're at least having that check-in moment with themselves.
Yeah.
So I even find just doing the check-ins, even if you're far away and you can't do something physically for them, is helpful.
Yeah, that's great. So just moving forward then from your block scheduling that we're going to put in the show notes for everyone, it is really important that even regularly, I say this for everyone, but I would guess more so for parents who've been so busy trying to raise their kids and finding that settling point. So when they're trying to reevaluate their position and their journey in life, how can we envision what's next or create the next part of our dream life whilst all that is going on with our new family?
So you mean once you get the chance to put your head above the water?
Yes. Or with a
Um,
snorkel.
right?
Every little matters.
That is why it is really important to go on dates.
Okay.
And I took a lot of extra marriage and family classes, and what other classes did I take? Extra nutrition, which I've already mentioned that several times, but definitely those ones. So while I'm spending less time with my husband, I'm being more impactful with the time I am spending with him. and especially with my children. So, what I learned is the importance of having those daily check-ins. I mean, if you're single, have those check-ins with yourself,
Mhm.
but have those check-ins with your significant other. How are you doing? What is on your mind? And letting each other have time to speak. Pick a time of day when your children aren't underfoot so you actually can have those conversations without interruptions. So that, and then have date nights, even if they're home date nights. If you can't afford it, have it at home or swap with somebody else. Swap with a friend. Make it consistent. Try to shoot for what my husband and I do is we'll do one home date night one week, and the next week we go out together. During the summer with the kids home, it's every week. We are leaving the house. But during the school year, it's every other just because of scheduling and everything else. And it's really fun to figure out what we're going to do at home for fun and then what we're going out and
Yeah.
experiencing. Take time for each other. Take time to update what some people call your love map, kind of your GPS, because you're changing. You need to share that with your significant other, and they're changing. So share it both ways. Spend time also learning each of your children because they are changing and they are changing stupid fast, especially when they're in the teenage years. Do you remember how much you changed through high school? Like every 6 months
Yeah.
was a huge change, let alone every year. So take that time to really get to know yourself and your family members.
Great. And is some of this part of the 8 dimensions of wellness that you were talking about?
Yes, and
Okay.
is the answer. So the 8 dimensions of wellness are kind of like a Venn diagram, and they are right here. So it's I'm too far away. Let me move my microphone. So it's psychological, emotional, social, professional, environmental, spiritual, financial, and physical. And as you can tell that they do kind of go over like psychological and emotional. Those almost sound like the same thing, but not quite, right?
Yeah.
And thinking about and you can do several of these things at one time. For me today, I'll take this morning for example. I went for a walk. So I'm getting out in nature and physical. So they're spiritual, nature and spiritual are very much together for me. And I went with a friend, so social. So they're spiritual, social, and physical that happen together. And as the children allowed, we just went with mine. Hers are old enough that teenager still sleeping. We had a chance to talk. So there's some of the mental happening there too. So as you're trying to hit all of these areas, realize that you can do several in one go.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answered it a little bit.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
that's why it's an and because it is taking care of them, but to different degrees. So taking that time to check in with family members, that definitely is hitting the social. And as you're learning about other people, have you realized that you're learning about yourself? I'm sure you have by hosting podcast.
Yeah.
Which is so fun. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that I get to learn from other people, not just from books or whatever, through interviewing people on my own podcast. But there's a lot of and here.
And they can be tailored to the parent
Yep. Or the individual.
or the
You don't have to be the
individual. Yeah.
parent. Yeah, which is what I really like about it. And when I first learned about the dimensions of wellness, they were showing it through a really old YouTube video that it'll take me hours to find. It's not even in my history. I tried to look through my history and search it. It's not even in there anymore. But it was shown as basically this fountain of youth,
Hmm.
and it showed older people playing chess, and there was a voiceover talking about how science is showing us that there is a way to help slow our aging down, and it is by doing these things. One of the fastest ways to age yourself is we see people retire and they're not as social and they're not as physical as they used to be.
Yeah.
And we all know people like that in our family, in our immediate vicinity who have done that, where sometimes they retire too late. they're neglecting themselves, workaholics, and then they don't have much left of themselves. What if we are taking care of ourselves now, working on that prevention aspect? What if we could be 100 years old and still have all of our faculties
Yeah.
working, instead of being 100 years old and wishing we were dead 10 years ago because we are so over life. We are just so ready to be done, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Life is tiring. I think generally, as we go through life, we get more tired as we get older. So when you've got a whole family to take care of, you're more tired than the average person, right? Because there isn't more social, there isn't more mental stuff driving you mental because you're always busy and you can't stay on top of everything. But yeah, I think finding joy within your days is so important, especially spiritually, because that's where you,
I think it all matters is mindset, though,
yeah,
because age is really just a number. How many people have you seen in their 60s that might as well be 90,
hmm,
or in their 60s that are in better health than someone who's in their 20s and 30s?
yeah,
So it's really what you decide it
yeah,
is. And we each have things that, if we're not being intentional with, whether it's our health, our family, our jobs, our hobbies, then what are we using our time for? We're just, in my degree, so much of it talked about diabetes, especially when I was in the public health track. And once we get there, it is a awful place to be, because if you're not taking care of yourself once you have diabetes, you can lose your eyesight, you can lose limbs, there's
yeah,
so much there. But we know people with diabetes that are doing great, they're thriving. But if we can take those people and go into the prevention aspect to where they're taking care of themselves, this is some of the population. It doesn't work for everybody,
yeah,
right? You're sometimes the hereditary, you're just going to get diabetes. But for some of these people, it is because of the way they've treated their bodies that they end up getting diabetes. And we can take this in any aspect of our lives. It doesn't have to be diabetes. But just for this example, if we work in the prevention aspect, if we are taking care of ourselves before we have kids, while we have kids, after we have kids, or we don't have kids, that's totally fine. You don't have to have kids. I'm not saying you need to have kids. There are plenty of people where they should probably not have been parents. Mine, we'll start with my parents.
okay,
But if we are taking care of ourselves and we are then able to fill our cup and share it with other people, using another metaphor that a lot of people use, and it's one of my favorites. If we can't pour from an empty cup, we can, it can look like it, but it's siphoning more from us.
yeah,
It's, and we will have to pay for it. It might not look like we're paying for it right now, but it will show up.
yeah. And especially with aging, like I trained as a PT and I was a personal trainer for a few years, and I had my own epiphany in my 30s where I realized I was borderline diabetic, and I was heavily overweight. I was a heavy smoker, drinking all the time, and I just decided I don't want to live till I'm 80. I'd like to live till I'm 100. I don't want to live till I'm 60 and die of a heart attack. I'd rather live to 80 and then die of a heart attack. Like, it doesn't need to be a heart attack. Again, it's a metaphor.
Yes.
But if I can live as long as humanly possible, I'm in control of that. And like, there are studies from my training that people have reversed things like diabetes based on nutrition, like you were talking earlier. Like, it's just how willing we are as humans. Are we happy to not do those things? Or would we like a little bit of discomfort and a little bit of extra works, let's say, to just live that longest period of time? But yeah, it's easier said than done for some people. I'm not
Well, and
judging.
I was thinking that's why you get a coach.
Yeah,
That's why
this is
coaching
true.
is
Yeah,
available, because you don't need to be doing those things alone.
yeah,
it can be so hard and such a lonely road if we feel like we're alone,
Hmm.
and we're not. And if you can't get a coach, find a friend, like, get that, like, co-mentorship going.
Yeah.
And what I love about coaching is I don't need to have all the answers. I can fake it as a parent. I don't need to have all the answers for you. But what I can offer and what I love to offer and what works the best for me when I am being coached is just having that very much, here's your sacred space. I am fully listening to you and I'm asking you questions for you to explore for yourself. And I find that when I have that, I have the biggest aha moments. They don't even have to be asking me the right questions. It's just they're giving me that space.
Yeah.
The space that friends try to hold, but they can't quite get there in the same way, where there's just, I see you, I'm showing up for you. What do you need?
Yeah.
What do you need in this space in this time? And we oftentimes don't allow that for ourselves. So it makes it harder. And we can go through life not getting to our full potential because we are human beings and the road that we've been on, we know it. So it feels easier than getting over these hurdles and getting over to the other road. And it will be easier in the long run, but it's the hardness of getting there,
Yeah.
of the unknown. And that's what I really like about coaching is I'm right there to hold your hand, right here to cheer you on. I love being a cheerleader. Now I get paid to do it and to
Yeah.
help people. That's my favorite. And one of the questions that I ask is what are your goals? What what are the positives to you achieving that goal and what are the negatives? Because there's always positives and negatives.
Hmm.
And if you really look at them together, you can really decide, is this worth the work that I'm going to need to put in to get here? Because sometimes the answer is no, it's not worth it right now. I have too much going on. So then now's not the right time.
That's a great way to start, isn't it?
Because
Yeah.
we
So,
tend to sign up for all the things,
yeah, that we don't even have time for.
right?
So, where can everyone find your stuff? Where can we find your website and the services that you offer then?
So you can start with the block schedule that we're
Which
going to
will be in the
share.
show notes.
Yes. And I am wellnessinEverySeason.com. I have mini programs that are $7 to $9, free programs all the way up to full programs and one-on-one coaching. I have a newsletter, which the in the show notes, the guide will put you into my newsletter at the end. So if you stick around, you'll be in my regular newsletter. Otherwise, you can get that and unsubscribe. No hard feelings. I've done that from several people that I love just because I get overwhelmed because I sign up for all the things. And then I find them again later. So I know if we were meant to work together, we will find each other again later, but at least start with the block schedule. That is what I started out with to really help get myself on track. And then from there, I was able to create the morning that I wanted in the evening, which is what I was originally going to share. But I think block scheduling fits the best here. So you can find me there. You can find me on social media. I find that I work the best with people through my newsletter than social media. But I am at Mom's Wellness in every season at Instagram and on Facebook. I you can't talk me into TikTok yet. Um, but I feel like if you have too many, then it kind of gets watered down anyway. But I am in those two places. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm not on LinkedIn as much. You'll mostly find me on Instagram. But the place that I love to get you to the most is my newsletter.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, we hope that has been a great insight to the world of parenthood and life successes, everyone. Autumn does have a lot more advice where that comes from, so please do go and check out all those sites. Thank you for coming to spend time with us today, and remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss these great conversations, and you can keep the conversation going over on Facebook at Gordy Camp TV and on Instagram and Threads at Gordy Camp. So until next time, look after yourselves and others and your families, and we will see you all soon. Take care.